Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and as you can see, I've got the tie on. We don't quite have the top hollow music playing in the background, we got something much more exciting. This is now the new day theme for the Amber Canyon, the new island that just dropped literally like a couple hours ago from when I'm recording this video, that is. But anyway, what is the news here? Well, we got the data. We got the data on the new Pokemon. So, what do they all got? Well, I'm going to take you through them one by one. There's 3 new Mons, 3 new lines that have been added. I guess, technically, 8 new Pokemon. But we have 3 new lines that were added. Each one of them does a different thing. I kind of want to break them all down, discuss with you guys kind of what I think their role in the meta might be, kind of what we're looking forward to with each one of them, and how to proceed, I guess, with what do you want to hunt this week, in the next couple weeks. Consider for your account. But anyway, what do they do? Well, I'm going to dive into Crustle first because I feel like it's the one that people are going to be the least excited about in general, but I do think there is some stuff here that is interesting to discuss. Some stuff here that Crustle, some potential that Crustle does have, if not for the fact that it is very expensive. Now, what does it do? It's a skill specialist with ingredient draw. Now, this is mighty interesting. In the past, all the other ingredient draw Pokemon have been kind of meh. Mawile is a good oil farmer, ultimately, but it kind of has a neat skill, but like the skill isn't what makes it good. It's more the fact that it's getting a decent amount of oil. The skill is just an added kind of bonus and bonus productivity of oil. In this case, Crustle is pretty much primarily relying on ingredient draw. Now, they also did have Honchkrow before it, but Honchkrow was kind of trying to dig between the lines of being both a Dream Shard farmer and an ingredient magnet or ingredient draw Pokemon, while also trying to split across a 4th ingredient that wasn't used in the meal that it seemed like it was being designed around. So it wasn't as well optimized. Now with Crustle, I think it's very interesting because if we dive into the ingredient draw pool that they gave it, it's avocados, potatoes, oil is what they have for its ingredient list, which is exactly what they have for the base skill. What it can output is potatoes, oil, or avocados, which is very significant because all 3 of those ingredients are in the meal, in one of the new meals that were added, one of the new strongest meals, in similar-ish proportions to how it appears in Crustle's ingredient list. Now, the avocados are a little bit lower than the potatoes in as far as proportions go, but overall, you can kind of get roughly close to this, especially considering that most of the ingredients coming off of it are going to be from the skill, not from the Pokemon's base productivity. Although it does have a decently high base ingredient rate as well, so it does actually kind of like that for what it is trying to do. But the better question here is, can it actually reliably do this? And I ran some comparisons just to get some rough numbers. Now, we can't actually make the comparison here in Rain on X quite yet, because the people that make this website, understandably, want to get some data on what the split percentages here are. Because as of right now, we don't know. Is it a perfect 33, 33, 33 split? I mean, I would assume it's probably going to be that way, and I ran some numbers here of if it is that way, what would it look like, how good is it? But theoretically, if these numbers do turn out that one result is weighted more heavily than others, then it may change the results here, so check back with Rain on X if you're going to make a decision for yourself. But previous ingredient draw Pokemon have had an even balance split, so I'm going to proceed assuming that Crustle also has an even balance split. But that data is not technically live yet. Now, for these calculations, I created a Crustle with investable stats. Assumed you'd be using a good camp ticket here, because if you're targeting the Groton, however it's pronounced, you're probably going to be using good camp ticket, I would assume. If you're trying to do it on an off week, it's going to be a lot more difficult with a Pokemon like this. So I'm assuming it's good camp ticket usage only here. But just looking at its ingredient productivity and its skill productivity, and then doing some math in a spreadsheet to figure out how much it's actually producing of each ingredient. Now, here I've logged how much it's producing off its base ingredients. The yellow number here is how many skill procs that ingredient list got per day based off of the comparisons here in Rain on X. Now, the numbers are minimally different there just because of inventory's impact. But it's very small, fractional amounts that there's a difference between each list. But then the bigger thing is how many ingredients it's producing off its base ingredient productivity, and then ingredients based off of calculation from the skill procs per day to figure out how many ingredients it's making of each. And then I'm comparing that to the requirement for the gratin. Seeing how much you would need to supplement in order to actually make that meal, and then the total amount supplement needed is just a sum of all of the positive values in each one of these columns. So how much you would need to supplement outside of what the Crustle can provide to still make that meal. Now, obviously the most optimized one for this purpose is going to be the ABC list, just because it's actually hitting up all the ingredients, getting maximum ingredient coverage. Now, theoretically, if you've got a better one, you could actually completely knock the potatoes out of the park, and then not have to worry about potato productivity, while only supplementing or stockpiling for the avocado or oil department. Now, obviously, outside of this, you're still going to need to produce milk somehow, so this would pair well with a milk farmer. But if you have something like this, and can, say, supplement with a mono oil Walrein as well, like just producing that oil on the side while also being a berry farmer, or even just something that has oil in the list somewhere else. I know Wigglytuff can have oil in its list. I'm sure you can probably provide some sort of supplemental oil here. And then avocados probably would need a stockpile just because there aren't that many options for avocados yet. So this might be a bit more difficult to come by in stockpiling, but you can reasonably reach these goals, and maybe you have a better Crustle than what this can provide. So then, the other question is, what about these other lists? Are they viable? And AAC is not too far off as well. You wouldn't just stockpile more potatoes or supplement more potatoes. And there is a bit of an offset when it comes to these other lists and how much you would need to be stockpiling or supplementing, just because it would overproduce in certain regards. Like here, it's way overproducing the potatoes. Same thing with there. Here, it's really... This one's also a pretty optimized one, but it's overproducing a little bit for both avocados and potatoes here with the ABA list. And the mono list, it's significantly overproducing the avocados and lacking in both potatoes and oil. However, I think that the only bad lists here with a Crustle. I think the benefit to Crustle here, and why I think it's actually a decent Pokemon to catch a few of, is because it's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, in that I think that these lists up here, these two top lists, can work pretty well with Groton if you get a good one. And if you get a good one, then maybe that's worth building a team around. Hunt that milk farmer, fill that last slot in, and get creative with it. I know it is targeting a specific meal, and it does take skill seeds, but I think there's some value there, and if you think that's fun, then go for it. I'm not saying it's the best Pokemon in the world. I'm not saying that this is something everyone needs to be investing in, because I don't think it's going to be amazing. But I think it might provide a bit more extra flexibility to the rest of your team slots, just by taking up that one team slot and consistently getting you a decent amount of what you need for that Groton, specifically on the weeks you have salads. Now, where I think the mono list and the ABB list can actually also be pretty useful, given what I said about their lists, what they are, ABB and mono, you can probably assume where this is going. Can it actually be a mono avocado farmer or mono pseudo-mono option for potatoes? And to make this comparison, I wanted to compare it to other Pokemon that produce these ingredients, and I really can't discuss Crustle's productivity of avocados without first jumping to Flygon. So I'll jump to Flygon, then jump back to this guy. So Flygon, there's not really too much to say here. It is the avocado farmer. This was kind of a shock to me, as it was to a lot of people. I know I saw some people make a prediction that Flygon could be the ingredient farmer, but I was not expecting them to make it as early as top. I publicly stated that a couple times, but it's at top, and you can get avocados reliably from the mono farmer from Flygon. It's just got charge energy, or charge strength S. Sorry, it doesn't have charge energy. There's a big difference there. But charge strength S, just a little bit of charge to Snorlax, while also getting the mono list. If you want avocados, here it is. Now, If you want to get a Flygon that produces what I refer to as the meta call amount of avocados, in this case that is 84, we get that from multiplying the largest meal, or the meal that takes the largest amount of ingredients of that ingredient, multiplying it by 3 for the number of ingredients produced per day. So in this case, we're getting 84. In order to get that with Flygon, this is a new tool that Rainonex just released and I've been playing around with. Roughly 1% that is going to be possible. Now, this calculation is not for using good camp ticket. The odds will look better in that regard. But if you on any given week want to produce enough, no matter what sort of event or what sort of good camp ticket usage you have, you want to be able to make 84 avocados a day. The odds of catching a Flygon that good or better is roughly 1% for level 60 and beyond. That seems pretty rare. That is pretty rare. So it is going to be a pretty difficult hunt because it's not necessarily the best with the way that they made its ingredient rate and speed or frequency. But there is something else interesting about it, in that there's actually perfect synergy with ABA Dragonite or AAB Dragonite in terms of what ingredients are produced by the Flygon. However, as of right now, I don't think I could really justify it. Because, yes, it can kind of do this, but given that the proportions are really far off, because you'd be overproducing soybeans and underproducing the avocados, given that Flygon is the only avocado option right now, like the only reliable avocado option, I would probably recommend it. I'm usually not a super mono-focused player, but in this circumstance, I'll say, as of right now, the best advice is probably to hunt for a mono-focused Flygon. I think there's room for improvement potentially one day if they're to add another avocado farmer, but I don't see that being the case anytime soon, since it really wasn't the case with corn or for coffee, with the new islands getting their ingredients respectively. Now, just to see how it compares for herbs, because that is its B ingredient, it is worse than Gengar, and Gengar is significantly worse than Dragonite for herbs. So I really probably wouldn't recommend investing in this guy for herbs. If it is what you stumble into right away, then you can potentially look into Crustle as an alternative option. Which, circling back to Crustle, is where it all kind of loops together. How does it actually do as a potential mono avocado farmer? Well, I've just plugged it in here with double trigger for skills, and then the different lists. And I've rerun these calculations that I did with Crustle initially, with them having the mono list and just getting a sum of how many ingredients it's making per day. Now, if we focus on the ones that these particular lists are focusing on, with mono summing for avocado, I just realized this is definitely not the mono list. This is the ABB list. This one's the mono list. I have these labeled wrong. Okay, that's funny. Okay, fixing that. This is the ABB list. This is the mono list. This is the AAC list is what I decided to pick for it. It can actually produce 68 avocados a day with just double trigger. And that's not with good camp ticket active, I might add. And I wanted to see, how does that compare to a Flygon? What sort of rarity Flygon would you have to get in order to get that amount per day? And it's roughly only about 2.5% of Flygons, or a Flygon of rarity, 2.5%. One in 40 Flygons that you catch, just about, will perform better than just this pretty simple Crustle. That's assuming you're putting in the full skill seeds, though, and that's assuming you're willing to deal with the unreliability of the way Crustle's producing the avocados and able to give yourself bigger buffers. Know the Pokemon you're using and learn how to work around their weaknesses. And this is a Pokemon that definitely will have weaknesses in its unreliability. What I think is more interesting than the avocado productivity is potato productivity. It actually can produce a decent amount of potatoes here, and as you can see, 71. That is a pretty significant number, because as of right now, what I was just referring to as the meta call of for potatoes is at 22 per meal or 66 per day. So this Crustle is actually able to, with an ABB list and just decent skill trigger stats, it's able to surpass the productivity for the meta call for potatoes. But the better question is your time spent better else? Is your time spent better hunting an actual potato farmer? So how does it compare to Potato Cat? Meowscarada. Well, once again, when I plug in the same number for how much this Crustle's producing per day, and use a Meowscarada, only roughly 3.34% are, or of ones that you can catch, perform at or better than this Crustle. So I think that's reasonable to hunt for. Maybe not necessarily hunt for, but it's reasonable that if you stumble into it, I can see that if you catch a really good ABB Crustle, that you'd be willing to settle on that being your long-term potato option if you don't have anything else for potatoes, and that's been a weak spot for you. I can also see that if you catch a really, really solid mono Crustle, being willing to deal with that unreliability for earlier access to avocados if the Flygon hunt is not going so well. I'm not saying it's a great Pokemon, but I think it's kind of something that, if you get the right sub-skills, it can kind of cover a lot of different potential roles. But as of right now, I don't see the AAB or ABA lists working out that well. But now that we've kind of discussed Flygon because of needing to discuss it for Crustle, and we discussed Crustle pretty much in full, let's just dive right into the Berrymon of the hour, Salamence. Now, this was a real shocker to a lot of people because there was a question about whether or not the pseudo precedent was really just coincidence or not. Now, for those that don't know what I'm referencing here, Tyranitar and Dragonite, they are both top-tier ingredient specialists for the ingredients that they produce, like miles above all the other ingredient specialists that make their A ingredient. And they both have a higher XP curve. They both have the self-recharge skill, main skill, and they both are ingredient specialists. So that's really been the quote-quote trend, but it was only applied to 2 Pokemon. So there was always kind of this question of, is this actually the precedent that they're going to move forward with pseudos, or is it just coincidence? And it looks like it was just coincidence, because Salamence is now here, and it is a berry specialist. Now, one notable thing that I do want to say about this is that that's, I think, going to be really difficult, just because this thing is going to care about its level. Now, there's a big difference between how ingredient specialists care about their level, how skill specialists care about their level, and how berry specialists care about their level. A skill specialist doesn't really care about it, because it just really relies on its main skill level to be good. An ingredient specialist only cares about crossing certain thresholds. Particularly level 60 is the most notable one. Once an ingredient specialist hits level 60, it kind of flatlines in how much you're going to gain by leveling it to beyond that point. But a berry specialist goes up in value exponentially with every single level that it gains. So, whereas with the other pseudos, the worse off XP curve just makes it more of a challenge to reach level 60, and then once it's at level 60, cool, you got your pseudo, it's what it was made to be. With this guy, every level after level 60 is going to matter and make a difference. So this is going to be a really difficult investment. And that is something that it is competing with other berry specialists on. And I want that to be something that you remember looking forward. Now, I will say, it being a berry specialist, which, by the way, it's got potato, ginger, sausage. Kind of a neat ingredient list, I guess. I actually didn't do much analysis with this. The fact that it's got potato is kind of nice, that it matches one of the new meals. But all those talking points aside, where it stands out compared to other berry specialists, if we look at its overall productivity, when compared to other berry specialists, when Snorlax favors their berries, it's the new top berry specialist for general strength. Alolan Ninetales does show up better here, but that's because this calculator does prefer its main skill quite a bit in a way that I think is unfair. So if you were to counteract the way that the calculator over-predicts Alolan's Ninetales main skill, the Salamence would be the new best berry specialist in the game, by a fairly decent margin. But it's not to such an extreme strength that I think it is game-changing. In fact, if we compare it to Sceptile, which is the real best berry specialist in the game, despite not being a berry specialist, and Sceptile at its weakest, I might add, with nothing but friends who are just bug-type berry or bug-type Pokemon, which is the weakest berry without favored berry, then it actually comes in weaker. And also, I do want to add, this is with level 3 Berry Burst. I didn't crank up Sceptile's main skill. Sceptile is just absolutely insane. That is something that was game-breaking. Salamence, not so much. It's good. It's very good. In fact, it is by far, by a long shot, the best berry specialist for Amber Canyon. If we compare it to Altaria down here at 55,000 compared to 69,000, that's a decent chunk difference. Arbok's even worse than Altaria, and the best of the three of them is Butterfree, who's only at 57,000 versus 69,000. If we just do a quick calculation there, it's roughly 21-ish% better, probably somewhere in 20 to 25% better. That's a significant difference, although I do want to note, and why I have this Altaria here, it doesn't power creep them so much to a point that they surpass the threshold that I set in my video talking about when sub-skills don't trump species. The way that I set that idea is a Pokemon is not worth ever investing. A species is not worth ever investing if there is an alternative out there that, with the bare minimum investable, is better than the absolute best possible. And if I compare the absolute best possible Altaria, ignoring helping bonus, to the bare minimum investable Salamence, the absolute best possible Altaria still does perform better. So Altaria is not completely power crept. It doesn't completely wipe Altaria's purpose out of the game unless you catch a really good Salamence. But it's good. It's a good berry specialist. But I'd say it's nothing that's going to completely change the game for everybody. It's just a berry specialist. There is a significant jump here, and I would be remiss to not mention that. And Dragon Berries are particularly interesting when put in tandem with things like Extra Helpful or the Legendary Beast skill. That's probably another great thing here for Salamence. If you're trying to build up a Berry Bomb, then theoretically this guy is going to be the best target for a Berry Bomb going forward. Assuming no favored berry, just because he's a Dragon Berry Pokemon. And if you are to infinitely Berry Bombed all the way to their inventory caps, then this guy is going to have the strongest berries on the other end. Even if you don't take them all the way to their berry cap, just the fact that he has the strongest berries is going to make the biggest impact. So, there's also something interesting to mention there about Salamence. But that was the case with Altaria before him, although Altaria does have a higher ingredient rate, so he's going to be actually finding more berries by default. But that's everything to really discuss about the 3 new Pokemon. If you have enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Down in the description, we'll have a link to join the Discord. You can come join us, hang out, talk about all things Pokemon Sleep and the like. A huge thank you to all my channel members. It really means a lot to me you guys want to show your support financially, despite there being no paid rewards for members. If you too want to become a member, then feel free to click that join button down below. And as always, I thank you all for watching, and I hope that you all have a wonderful time at the Amber Canyon. Bye-bye now.